For today's demo, I'm going to be playing the part of Melissa Wendt. She's our operator. The primary extension on her phone is 7601. I'm going to be controlling her Cisco 7965 color desk phone that looks something like this. We'll show it with the feature that we have called the DTMF keypad that lets you look at the screen of a phone, push buttons on it if you need to, things like that. But she's got a primary line, a secondary line, shared line, and some menu options. Fairly normal phone. That's what I'll be controlling. This up here in the corner is a Cisco IP communicator. It's actually the phone of this person here, Susan Larson, 7012. And that's on the screen because I'm going to transfer calls to that. I'm going to do some of our features that will utilize the phone itself so you can see what the phone messages or things like that look like on the phone that's receiving them, as well as what the operator will see with our console. So that way I kind of show you both ends of the conversation. So don't be confused by that. To start, I'll go through the layout of the screen and show you what these things are and what they mean before start making calls and transferring and things like that. So at the top, we use a Microsoft ribbon control. If you're familiar with Microsoft Office, you've seen one of these before. It's broken down into sections depending on how you're configured. There's a call control section that'll allow you to do things with the, without using the telephone. Then you can answer, put things on hold, hang up, etc. We have status, personal address books, some things that can deal with hunt groups, as far as showing you who is logged in, logged out, logging yourself in and out, some basic statistics, things of that nature. Below that, we have this black box here that we call the heads-up display area. This is going to show us information about the current call that we have selected. If there's more than one call on the phone, they'll just populate here in the My Calls box from oldest to newest. So when I say the current call selected, if there's just one call, that's the current call that's selected. It's not too difficult to figure out. And what we'll get in the HUD here is we'll get the line that we're talking on. So if there's 4 lines on our phone, it'll show us which one we answered. If it's a different one than our primary, it'll put the name of that line there as well, and also a picture of one's different down here. So it'll show us how long the call's been in the system, who we're talking to, if caller ID information is available from wherever we're getting this stuff. And then there's a call reason code at the end. Direct isn't terribly exciting, but if we get a call transferred to us, it'll show we're getting the call because it was transferred, or if it was forwarded from a phone, or if we took it out of the parking lot, or it rang back from somewhere that didn't get answered. That information will be displayed here, so we'll have that available as well. Like I said, if we do get more than one call, you see how we have a second call. We can make that the selected call just by clicking on it, and then we can use things like that. It's not how we have to do things. What you're going to see in our program is there's a lot of different ways to do the same sort of thing. So, I can right-click and take things on or off hold or hang them up. I can use the ribbon. I can use keyboard shortcuts. Really just about any way you could imagine that's intuitive to manage calls. What the heads-up display area does for us is it lets the operator tell us which call she wants to perform an action on. So to that end, we can do some things you can't do on the phone. For example, in this scenario, we're talking on the second call, but we want to transfer this first call to someone else. We can do that while we continue to speak with the second call. So you can do things that you can't do necessarily on the phone with the heads-up display area and the My Calls. So that's how that section works. Below that, we have something called extension groups. And what these are is they're just little containers of extensions. They're not like the old legacy consoles speed dial tabs where you had to click and scroll around to find people. Well, you didn't have to, but everybody did because the search didn't function properly. You'd start searching for someone and the phone would ring and it'd resort everything. So nobody ever used that. Our extension groups are just for visibility's sake. So if I want to look at, say, all the users in the sales group and see who's on the phone, I can do that by clicking that and showing that information. Now these can be built. You see there's different icons. Some say local, some say global. So there's 2 types. Global means that all the operators can see it. Local means that only I can see it. It's built just for my user. The operators can build these themselves if they want to create them. They can be built and maintained from Active Directory departments, company information. They can be built from ranges on the server. If we want to say everybody who's in an extension 1000 to 1500 should be designated in this group, we can do all those different things. You can right-click on a group and edit it if it's created or you have permission to do so. If it's created on the server, like for example, I believe this one is, they won't be able to do that. So you can kind of maintain the integrity of however you want to create these things, or you can work without creating any of them. It's completely up to you. You could start in a default one easily, just right-click on it. If there's some you don't want to see, you can exclude them from view. So those will work just as kind of advertised there. So below that we have location objects, and what these are is a good place to put things that you may either need to call or transfer a call to that aren't going to be a line on someone's phone. The example I always use is a hunt group. In this case, we've got a 7700 number that we can dial or transfer a call to that rings a group of phones, but no one's phone has the 7700 on it, so it's not visible from the call manager TSP to us. So this is our way of putting in those kind of system things, if you will. And those are configured on the server. But when we use those, see, we can drag a call down to there, and it lets us transfer the call to that hunt group. And then we can follow along with the two members in it that are getting the call, and when one of them answers, we're able to see that for a second, and that'll kind of go away. So that's how we use location objects for the most part. The bottom portion will show us the version we're running, how many phones and lines were found from the Cisco TSP driver, some license stats, and some PC stats. The parking lot information will display here. Since we aren't a separate phone system, both the calls that are parked via the phones and our product will appear in this window. We do have some added functionality with a feature that we've created called Park For that I will show you in real time in just a little bit, but that'll make sense as to why that's valuable. Below that is our search box, and you see it has a very long description. It says any part of anybody's first name, last name, title, department, phone number, personal address book category. There's just a single search box. And when you get a new call, the cursor becomes selected in here for you. So you can click the answer button and start typing without even having to click into there. Now, the search box will function a couple of different ways. When we push a single character, for example, if I push S, it's going to show me everyone whose name starts with S in this case. If I, again, were to type L, same thing. Now, as I continue to type, it's going to match inside names. So LAR is going to match inside Larry and inside Larson. So it becomes a more complex search as you increase the characters. It's a real simple, smart way of being able to find people easily. You can also search inside a particular group if you like. If you want to just look for Larry inside sales, you can do that and take off the global searching, so it's looking only in this group now. Or I can search the whole phone system again by toggling that. I can also just type the word sales in here, and it'll find everyone who has a matching title or department with sales in it. So it's very simple, and really you can type pretty much anything you want in there, like almost like Google, and it'll find the people you want. Okay, so below that, there's 3 tabs in our program, and this is kind of where you'll do most of the work as an operator. The first tab says extensions. These are people that are part of our phone system. Numbers that are DNs on Cisco phones typically. So that's what you're going to find there. Inside of there, there's fields that you would expect to see. There's photo, name. There's 4 status fields. There's a call status, which I'll just get someone back on the phone here. A call status will light up. We'll also color the entire row if they're in a call, and the colors are what you'd expect. They're pink for ringing, green for talking, blue for hold. So you can hover on that icon and see more information, but that's the call status column. The other status column next to it can be populated from a lot of different places. Now that can be some information from phones that's not call related, like whether the phone is forwarded or do not disturb. That we read on the server and we'll push out to the clients every 5 to 10 seconds, so that should probably be popping in here any second, so we can see the phone is do not disturb. We can also read from most of the modern presence programs, like if you're using Cisco Jabber or Microsoft Link. Just watch Melissa, that's here. She's listed as available right now. If I toggle her to a custom do not disturb out of the office, you can see that doesn't take very long for that to show in both places. It's both just so it's backwards compatible with our older client, but we'll be able to show that information from Jabber, from Link, from Google Business Apps, if you're running that, really any of the modern presence programs. We can also get information with our Exchange connector. So if someone's calendar says they're out of the office, that can be a red out of the office mark. So as soon as the operator would look that person up, they'd realize, okay, they're not in the office. You know, I can either transfer it to someone else or do whatever the company policy would be at that point. And I'll show you some more details about that when we get to that section. The third column for status is hunt group status. So if you're making use of hunt groups, it will show you, you know, if a user is logged into hunt groups, if they're logged out of hunt groups, so they're not going to get the call, or in this case, both. This 7002 actually exists on two phones. One is in, one is out. So it shows you that as well, if that's useful. And then the chat status, like I said, can get from Link, Jabber, Google, all those things, and display that here. In addition to that, when you are hooked up with those sorts of things, you can do chatting, email, things like that directly without having to switch programs. Of course, I've got it minimized, so it's going to pop minimize, but I can initiate a new window in Jabber or Link to talk to that person without having to go back and forth. So you mentioned being able to send IMs before. You can do that all from within the same program. So I don't have to use 4 different programs to email, IM, or handle calls. It can all be done in the same program, whether it's, you know, mail, you know, IM, whatever the case would be. So that's kind of all self-contained here. We'll also show the extension, call status, time. You can blind those things if you want, but by default they're on, so you can see, you know, who the call is with. Title, department, if it's available from either call manager or from Active Directory, whichever one you're getting your names from. And then we have an extension notes, which will show you, as you hover on it, extension notes. You can right-click and you can edit some extension notes. So you see there's two types. There's shared, which all the users can see, and then there's personal, which you can make that only you can see. So you have a couple different options for leaving a particular note on a person. Then there's just a voicemail indicator, like a message waiting icon, whether the person has or doesn't have voicemail. That can be useful for a personal assistant or something like that. If the boss wants to know if he has any voicemails waiting for him, you can say yes. Can't really tell him what they are, but it's enough to at least answer that question. So that's kind of the layout of the screen and how that works. So let's show you some of the ways we can handle calls and do things. In the program, again, you're going to see there's a lot of ways to do the same sort of thing. So it's really intuitive, and it doesn't take a whole lot of training to be able to use. So one thing to mention is, unlike some of the other products, we are not a separate phone system. So you can kind of interact with your phone and us all at the same time. So what I mean by that is I can answer a call on my phone, I can put it on hold in our program, I can take it off hold on the phone, I can work interchangeably at any point. The best way to think of us is like a smart remote control for your phone. So it makes it nice if you have a wireless headset or something like that. So to answer calls, like I said, we can do the ribbon, we can right-click on a call and answer, we can double-click pretty much anywhere where it's pink to answer a call. There's also keyboard shortcuts for it, but that's how you do it. So once we have a call, we want to transfer it. Okay, we have a lot of ways to do that. Everybody knows how to drag and drop. You can drag and drop the entire HUD if you like, or an individual call on someone. The first time you do, it's going to ask you what you'd like to do, because everybody seems to do something different. But you know, you have options of blind transfer, a supervised transfer where you talk to them first, let them know who it is, straight to voicemail transfer, or you can park the call for that person. If you want to do the same thing every time you drag and drop, you can just check this box and say, do this next time, and it will always do that. I just leave it on a prompt mode to be able to show people. This prompt, which is kind of nice because it will show you which call you drug and who you dropped it on, so there's never really any chance for mistakes then. But I'll just say transfer. So once I do that, the transfer follow lets us follow along, which is nice. If we search for this person and they're no longer on our screen, we can kind of still see what's going on there until they answer. So that's drag and drop transfer. That's one way to do things. You can drag and drop to wherever you would expect as well. Any of the address books, the location objects. To do double click, again, I can double click where it's pink to answer. When I double click on someone, the same thing happens. You know, I get an option. And I can make them different. I can have a different option for when I double click or for when I drag and drop. It's completely customizable, and you can reset that at a later date if you decide you don't like what you did. But it's really the same thing. You know, I push what option I want. It all happens the same way. If I want to use the keyboard for some of those things, I can do that as well. We have a couple options there. There's a freeform transfer where it just pops up a little box, and I can type in any number. Like I'll type in Susan's number here and just press enter. And you see that transfers the call over to her. So I can do that if I like. If I'm, you know, heavy number pad user, and it's just easier than, you know, searching or punching things in on the phone. Some of those operators do know everyone's number. For keyboard shortcuts, we can pop out our key at any time here, and it'll show us all kinds of things like what the icons mean and all those crazy things. So for now, I'm just going to hide all that just so we kind of focus on the keyboard shortcuts. And we'll handle an entire call with those. I'll park the mouse up there, and I'll just we're kind of number pad centric. So Control plus will answer. To transfer a call with just the keyboard, I do need to search until I find the person that I'm looking for. So I could type as much of that person's name as need be. When I found them, I can do any of those transfer things that I have there. There's 4 or 5 of them. I'll just do Control T because that's what I've been doing. So that transfers the call, puts my screen back the way I had it since I don't have any more calls, and lets me follow along down here. So that's how we use the keyboard. The last one I'll show you is the right mouse click. I can right mouse click to answer. I can right mouse click on, say, Susan, and then I have all these options here too. So I can transfer, supervise transfer, transfer to voicemail. I can do an Active Directory lookup and transfer. So if I need to transfer it to her cell phone, but I don't know what it is, I don't want to have to maintain it, we've already got it in Active Directory, I can pull this up, see it in there, transfer the call to her mobile phone, or even better, call her on it, let her know who the caller is, and then complete the transfer if I need to. So that's available. In this case, I'll just do a supervised transfer since I haven't done one of those, so you can see that. That's where the call goes on hold, and then we actually call Susan, and we get to let her know, hey, you've got a call. Do you want to take that? She says yes. We can say yes to complete the transfer. If she can't, we can say no. That would hang up with her, and it would put us back on this call. In this case, we'll just say yes. You can see it completes the transfer, and her phone will show the same thing. So she's talking to that caller now. So that's how we handle transferring. Again, there's a lot of different ways to do it, but really it's so that there's not a lot of training required. It's very flexible and intuitive for the operators. Call parking, there's a couple of ways to do that as well. One will do it very much like the phone, where we can just kind of park it for no one in particular. We can do that with the park button and the ribbon. We can right-click on the call and say park. There's a keyboard shortcut for it, or we can just drag the call to the parking lot. That would work as well. Any of those things will do the same thing. It parks the call in Call Manager, and then we can see where it's parked, who it is, when it's going to ring back, and how long it's been in the system. We'll also let you color code it yellow, orange, and red based on how long it's been in the system. So if you want to kind of keep an eye, I've got them set pretty low for demo here. As you can see, it's already gone to yellow. If you want to help people that have been waiting longer, that can be a handy function there. To get a call out of park, we can just dial this number, or we can double-click it in our world. That'll bring it back out. Now you see our call our call reason has changed. We have the call because it was unparked and shows us where it was from. So that's parking pretty much how the phone does it. So the only real advantage that we saw to parking a call was that it got it off your telephone, and it made it so someone else could pick it up on their phone without us having to transfer the call. But we still were left with the problem that we have to notify that person about the call. So a couple of years ago, we came up with a function called Park For. What Park For does is it'll utilize the technology to do that portion of things. So, for example, if we get a call and we want to get it to Susan as quickly as possible, we can right-click on her and we can say Park For. So it all happens the same up here, except now all the operators can see who the call's parked for, which is kind of nice. But that's when our connector piece can jump into action. Depending on how it's configured, the connector can send an instant message to Susan's Jabber client on her iPhone while she's walking down the hall, letting her know about the parked call. She can just grab the nearest phone and take it. We can push a sound and a screen right to her desk phone to let her know, so she can see she's got a call parked, when it was parked, who it is, where it's parked, and who parked it. She can decline it, which will notify us that she couldn't take it. She can ignore it altogether and let it ring back wherever it's going to do that, or she can just lift her handset and she's got that call. So it really makes it easy for the operators to move calls quickly. And it does one other thing that's kind of nice too. If we have a situation where the person's on the phone but they have another call, the operator then doesn't have to decide which call is more important to that person or involve anyone else in that decision. They can right-click and park that call for Susan again and let Susan decide. So the process will kind of repeat itself. You see the call goes into the parking lot. The server notifies her via her, however she's set up, phone or IM. But it doesn't mess up with the call she's already on. She's still speaking to this caller, but now we've presented her some options. Well, maybe this call is something she's been waiting for. She wants to ask the other person to hold. She could also just ignore it, decline it, tell us she can't deal with it. Or she could just deal with both calls at once, and she could, hold one, answer the other, deal with it, and return back to what she was doing before. So we've pushed some of that decision-making back into the hands of the person who knows the answers to those questions. It takes some of the strain off the operator, having to deal with, maybe 4 minutes of tracking down what I should do with this call for someone when they knew all along. So that's another advantage of Part 4. Okay, so we have some functions that are similar to that called messaging and paging, and they're available under right-click as well. You see, if I right-click, I have a message to phone and a page to phone. Message to phone is what you'd expect. It pops up a little dialog box that lets us type a message as if we were sending a text message to a cell phone, only it goes to the Cisco desk phone. Maybe we want to say you have a visitor at the front desk. We can do that. We have the option to send it in the future. If we wanted to delay it until 3 o'clock and tell her don't forget to turn off the lights or something like that, we can certainly do things like that as well. In this case, we want to send it urgently, so we'll just hit send. And you see that winds up on her desktop where she can see, who the message is from, what the name and all that too, and what the message is. And it'll work again if she's on or off the phone. It doesn't make any difference. But we've given her some options here as well. She can acknowledge our message and send us like a ping back with the send OK button. She could reply to it on the phone if she really wants to, or she can just clear the thing and ignore it altogether. In this case, we'll send an OK back. You see what happens then is it generates a text or a chat message to us from Susan with the subject line message acknowledged and what our message was. So it just lets us know that she got it and she acknowledged it. So that's how that works. Page to phone is similar. It's under the right click and we say page to phone. Now it's going to function differently in these scenarios. If we're not on the phone, it's going to go into a muted speaker mode where we're broadcasting through her phone. When we stop, it'll go away. If she happens to be on the phone, and let's just put her on the phone real quick here. Okay, so she's on the phone, and we right-click and say page to phone. Then it does a whisper page where we're able to whisper in her ear. She can hear us, but the person she's talking to can't. And again, when we're done, we just tell it to stop, and then that process will stop as well. The software to do both the messaging and the paging is built into these phones themselves. So there's no voice resources used by Call Manager. There's no real CPU used by Call Manager. The phones themselves are actually doing all the heavy lifting, with our connector acting more as a conductor, telling the phones what to do. So that is how those two things work. So you probably noticed we don't have 6,000 tabs on our screen like the legacy console. That's probably the first thing that operators will notice when they do the transition. You'll just have to kind of take our word for it. In 3 days, they won't ever want to go back. There is a way to import. So if I'm using, a legacy console, you guys are using version 7, I can import that information right into the My Address book, or I can do it into, build local extension groups out of people that were part of those things. All that stuff can be done with just a simple click. So it can pull it all right back in. So we have these 3 address books. So you've seen the Active Directory phone book. That's the one that let us search for AD numbers and things like that from the right click. It's the same one. There's 2 others. There's the My Address book and the Global Address book. And you'll see they're available here as tabs on the main screen as well. The My Address book is normally just for a particular person. So it's information that I would put in that not all 16 operators need to see. I can create categories. So instead of tabs, I have a category. So if I want to look at people I put in here, I can do that. I can add people. I can transfer calls to these people. I can call them. I can send them emails. All those things right from here. I can also search across categories. So if I want to look for all the Joes and all the different categories, Joe's a bad example. There's only one cross category, I guess, but all the Johns, I can find them all wherever they may be. Again, shortcuts on an email, call them, whatever I need to do from there. This window, again, will work as a pop-out or right here, too. So when I search for John, you see it finds 2 extensions, 23 My Address books, and 2 globals. So all that can be done from right here as well. So it's all available locally and I know if there's something in there before I even click on it. The same thing applies with the global address book, except the global address book is visible to all the operators. By default, no one has any permission to write or delete from it. You have to assign that on the connector. So everybody's read-only by default. But you see it has a lot more fields. It's more like an Active Directory style layout where it's got 4 different phones, 2 different emails, the ability to call or transfer to any of those numbers. And you see you can even have 10 custom fields. I've assigned 2 of them a name on the server, but you can build these out to fit your organization if you want. It's a SQL table. It'll mark if somebody changes it on both sides, so you can use it if you want to replicate data back and forth, if you have it from some other program where you have contacts. That will all work. So that's the global address book. That's also available here with all the same functions. So those things are available. That's kind of how we deal with the numbers that aren't part of the phone system, if you will. That's usually how they're dealt with in our program. Instead of a million tabs, it's just a simple, I want to find John. All right, he's here. I don't have to go, into a tab and scroll up and down and try to look up things. So that's how we deal with those. We also have the ability to do some call redirection if you want. By default, again, this is turned off, but if you want the operators to be able to create call ID redirection rules, they can. Say there's an organization that calls that you just want the number to always go to voicemail or something like that. They can create rules based on a name or number if you like. And our server will see those events coming in and just redirect the call for you. It's pretty simple. They can also forward a phone if they need to. Say for example Susan left. She called back on her cell phone and says, crap, I forgot to forward my phone. Could you handle that for me? All right, maybe her office is locked. They can just use the console either way to do that. So as you see, put a number in to make a forward or leave it blank to clear one. So if I put a number in, let's say we'll forward Susan's phone to 7001. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to let her know that you forwarded her phone, so she'll know that. But then it works just like if you push the buttons on the phone. You see it's forwarded. Our program will show it, the same way. You can actually clear it on the phone. And that'll go away in a few seconds there too. But that's one way to do it. You can also set up a rule using our server to forward things using call redirection for a specific amount of time if need be. And you can also do alerting from our server. We have something called caller ID, match notification. Most people use it just simply for like 911 or something like that. But you can build rules, and you can build them specific to networks. So if you want, someone dials 911 on network 10.1.6.x, alert this guy via IM. If they dial it on 10.2.4.x, alert this guy via email. You can build out all kinds of rules on the server if need be. I'll just demonstrate it by dialing 911 on phone 7001. We've got a whole slew of things set up here to go off when this happens, I think. So, okay, so we've dialed it. You can see Susan was in the group to get notified about that via phone message. So she got a screen on her phone saying that that happened. I think Melissa is in the email group. So whenever that shows up here. You can, like you say, you can have an email with all the information you can gather about the person from Active Directory. Who's their manager, what building they work in, all that information can be gathered that way too. You can really, like you said, you can build these rules to do whatever you want. There's also an IM rule that will have Melissa in as well. So she just got IM'd about the incident. So you can give it whatever. I have like 911 dial alert as the title. You can set whatever message you want for any number you want. So you can define those however you like, all built in on the connector side. Okay, so that's kind of the basics of the program in a nutshell. I'll just touch real quickly on 2 of our add-ons. The first one is our group messaging and paging. So what that does is it'll give you these 2 icons and the ability to do things on the right click on the extension groups to a group level. So by default, I could right click on Susan and I could page her phone. Well, if I wanted to page a whole bunch of phones, this add-on will give me the ability to do that. So I could page these 6 phones all at once without having to do a whole lot of work. I can also build groups on the server, either by names of individuals if I want, or I can define, again, with the network and just page everybody who's on 10.2.4.x if I like, or by building those groups, there's it'll hit your default one if you do that, or you can pick the groups defined on the server that way as well. So there's really 3 different options to do group paging. Text messaging is the same way. If I want to send a message to everyone in this text group, I can put it on all their phones using that, or I can also right-click and do the same thing with, send a message to everyone in this group, all 6 of these people. It also includes one feature that's not message or paging really related. That's called our group park for, or park for group. What that'll do is it'll let me park a call for all 6 of these people at once. So they all got notified about this park call right now. And I'll pick it up on a different phone here. You see when I do, we'll notify the other person that it's been taken and put their phone back to normal. So that's the other feature that comes with the group messaging and paging. And that's an enterprise-wide thing, so it doesn't matter if you have 1 group or 2,000 groups. You can build as many of them as you want. It's all the same. The other one is our Exchange add-on. That does a couple things. It does something with contacts and something with calendar. For contacts, it will always have the current synchronized Exchange contacts available in each user's My Address book. So they'll always have their contacts synced without having to set anything up on the client or worry about any add-ins to Outlook or anything like that. That can all be left completely clean. As far as calendar goes, it will populate these people in, out, kind of based on what they're doing with their calendar. And it gives you a little bit more information in 2 ways if you like. One, you can right-click and you can say Extension Properties, Calendar. And that's going to show us, like we mentioned earlier, a blind view, if you will, of what that person's calendar looks like. By blind, I mean we'll be able to see, out of the office, free, tentative, busy, and the time block, but that's all. You can turn on more detail if you want to be able to see the meeting subject, meeting body, meeting attendees, but most people don't. It'll give you a little bit of forward visibility too, so if you're setting up, as a personal assistant, hey, I want to have a meeting with this guy next Tuesday. Is he available? Yep, he's available at 4:30 or something like that. Without having to flip back and forth again with programs, things like that. The other thing you can do, you did mention that you have some like admin assistants that are specifically assigned to people. They could take advantage of this function. There's like a pop out of sticky. So if I only care about this guy, I can pop him out and I can just have him on my desktop all day long. I can see, what his calendar is going to look like, blindly again. But I can work in my other programs and things, and when I get a call, I can answer it. I can call him. I can transfer calls to him, all from right in here. I can email him. I can do all those things that you would expect, just with this little kind of sub window, just kind of keeping an eye on him. So that's all available as well. So with that, I'll kind of conclude this portion and